there is this continuing dialogue about whether or not there's one day going to be a European Super League. There is a suggestion that by 2024 the Champions League could be extended. I think it's sometime next year that the next meeting of UEFA is when they're going to discuss this. And some of the big clubs, it's suggested that the 6 big English clubs, including City, are for this, which is to expand the group stage to 10 games rather than 6 that we play at the moment. It would be 10 different opponents. So you would play 5 teams at home, 5 teams away, different 5 teams, obviously. And then you would go into the new year with the knockout stage, which then would have the knock-on effect of cutting back on FA Cup replays. League Cup would be affected by it as well, 2-leg semi-finals, etc., to squeeze all these extra fixtures in. But the benefits of clubs like City would be a lot of extra revenue coming in from Champions League, both in terms of gates, but more lucrative, really, probably from television deals. There is even a bigger ambition by some clubs, and I don't know if City are involved in this, of actually withdrawing from your domestic league into a European Super League, which would then mean that City would not be involved in the Premier League or domestic stuff. I mean, this is far less drawn, so nobody knows exactly what the details of that would be. I know we're a City podcast, but Alex Ferguson, dead against the expansion of even the Champions League. I wonder, and here we have an interesting panel because we've got two youngsters in the 20s who, and I was particularly determined that when we were talking about this tonight, that we didn't have an average age or of older, so that you would get what some people would perceive to be the inevitable answer of, I don't want change because I'm old and I'm stuck in my ways. You are youngsters. You're not stuck in your ways. Bring on the change. So tell me what you think of the proposal. Let's start with the straightforward one, the one that looks more likely if it's going to happen, to 10 Champions League games against 10 different opponents instead of the format we have at the moment.
It just feels like, so all the complaints City fans had over, financial fair play over the past couple of years, shutting the drawbridge behind you, cutting off the competition, making it a cartel of the big clubs and only the big clubs. It just feels like we're going down that path, and yet we're on the wrong side of it, and I don't like it. And it's not the fact that I don't like change. I just want to make sure that it's not this big club cartel where they're the ones getting all the money. Basically what the Premier League was back in 93, wasn't it? It was a cutaway. The big clubs wanted more money for themselves, so they buggered off. And I don't want to be in that same position as the club that separated, domestic football from European football. I don't like the sounds of it.
So are you saying that just on this 10, you can bring in the sort of complete breakaway if you want, but just on this 10, that's not something you're in favour of? It
just feels like it's a way for UEFA to make sure that United and AC Milan and big teams who may not have qualified by the normal means, they still get to play in European competition just to keep the prestige up. It just feels like that. Oh, we'll expand it to 6 teams.
We don't know. I don't know this for an absolute fact, but if the rumours are to be believed that City are one of the instigators in the Premier League, how do you feel about that? Are you happy that City are pushing this agenda forward?
No, I'm disappointed because, like I just said, it feels like everything we fought against 10 years ago when we were the little club trying to join the big clubs. Now we're a big club, we're saying, yeah, that's okay. So no, I don't like it.
Interesting. What about you, Nabeel?
Yeah, completely. I think Will summed it up perfectly there. Like 10 years ago when City weren't a big club, and now we're just to go in favour of it. I personally, I'm a traditionalist on this. I like to also focus on domestic football. I think having 10 games, that idea in the extra in Champions League, I just think it'll take a toll on the other competitions. And then will it come to a point where the Champions League is going to take precedence over the league? Because I personally think the league is a better measure of a team's capability, because over a 38 game period, I think that shows what a team is capable of. And I think the away goal rule impacts in Europe as well. So honestly, me personally,
but just to play devil's advocate on that one, obviously
you're playing my role.
I'm playing your role here, just because of what you said there about the league. So if it's a European Super League, then everyone plays across the whole season, and it's exactly what you were just saying. So it would give you the best team. Obviously, I'll pipe in with what I think in a moment, but I'll just be interested to see what you've just said about the Premier League will be what is Europe. So it won't be a cup competition, it will be a league.
But who gets to be in the Super League then?
Yeah.
Is it the best clubs in Europe? Because really that's 5 teams from England, 5 teams from Germany, 5 teams from Spain, and a couple from Italy.
What about the other clubs which we once were, like what we were saying? I think that's where the argument's there.
Are we competing against the champions of Hungary?
Like, I still want to win on a wet, cold Wednesday night in Stoke and batter them 4-0, and at the same time beat Real Madrid on a Tuesday night in sunny Spain. I think we need to get the balance right as well. I'm a big fan of domestic football, but again, I think it comes down to, like, I still think the league's a better measure of a team's capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I agree. I'm just interested in terms of the league side of it. But for me, I think it's just plain and simply protectionism. We've got it. From what I've read, one of the organising spearheads of this is AC Milan, and they've not won the Serie A in over 5 years. They've not even been in top 3 for 4 years. So them trying to push for something that's then going to give them more money and kind of that prestige and keep them in the limelight, it is just protectionism. The same way we only had 1 spot until United dropped to 2nd, and then we got 2 spots in the Champions League. I just think, for me, if you're going to change the Champions League, here's what you have to do. And if he's listening, old Seferin, this is what you need to do, is go back, plain and simple. Personally, I'd get rid of the pots and the seeding and the coefficients and all that rubbish, because it should be simply as this. It's the Champions League. The champions of the leagues play each other, and it's a knockout competition. You can draw anybody, you can get anybody. That way, you're playing the best. You're not then waiting until...
That'll be less games, though.
It might be less games, but you're going to get...
Who's going to vote for that?
Better games. You're going to get more engagement from fans.
I don't disagree with, but who's going to vote for that? Let's be realistic here, Tony.
If you ask the fans, I think a lot...
What do the fans count for? Listen, the clubs want to bring money in.
Yeah.
They want to get TV. They want more money. It's like the turkeys voting for Christmas. Who is going to say no? You know how we've got 6 group games at the moment. UEFA want to bring in 10, so they want to expand it by 4, and all these big clubs, maybe City as well, are rubbing hands together going, great, more exposure, more TV coverage, more gate receipts, more money from television. They're not going to go, no, we'll just have 2 knockout rounds before Christmas, and if we get knocked out in the first round, we've got nothing. Who's going to vote for that?
It's one of those, though, because we've got, how many leagues in Europe? About 20, if we include Russia. We've got 30 odd there in total. So there's enough games to go around. And again, it's quantity over quantity because you're getting, for example, City Real Madrid might be an opening game. So A, you're going to get increased viewing figures. B, you'll be able to increase what you're paying in advertising or charging advertisers to get for. So there's money there. It's all about the certain clubs that want to protect the money that they're getting because their current performance isn't matching where they were, and they want to keep that prestige. It's nothing to do, and it is slightly to do with UEFA in terms of how much money they want to make out of it, because they're just looking at another cash cow. But for the most part, as I say, if you want a Champions League, for me, one of the biggest jokes in the Champions League is the fact that you've got a club like Ajax who won their league, got through to the semi-final of the Champions League, and then this season they still had to qualify even though they won their league for the Champions League. And then you've got other clubs that can finish 3rd or 2nd, have automatic entry. It is not a Champions League. The whole system, for me, it is a glorified FA Cup. In its current format, if they were to change it, then I probably wouldn't continue. I would follow City to the end of the earth. But at the same time, if they were to change it, I wouldn't necessarily be queuing up to go and get a ticket for that game, simply because I disagree with changing it.
So you're suggesting the old European Cup, so only the champions of each team goes in, straight knockout.
Champions, and maybe you could have runners-up if you want to expand it in terms of the amount of games and groups and stuff like that. But then you can still do groups, but you're getting rid of the pots. So you might have a group with Barcelona, Real Madrid, others.
Whoa, that's 2 out the same league.
Okay, then you might have a squad with Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, PSG and City, for example, and that would be
and
a
then
group
another
of
one
death.
with the Finnish champions, the Dutch champions.
But then that is pot luck, and we all City get the easiest draws, but it is pot luck, it's a draw.
So here's the other side of that one, right? City getting a group with the Swiss champions, no insult to these countries, of course. Swiss champions, the Finnish champions, and the Belgian champions, right? Who's going to attend those games? I mean, City at the moment, if we're being really honest, in these Champions League group games, might be different against Real Madrid, but against Shakhtar Donetsk, against Atalanta, I can't say this for certain, but it feels to me There were lots of freebie tickets, there were lots of heavily discounted tickets, and lots of encouragement for people. I think one of them was in the half-term holiday, and I remember as I walked around doing the vlog, there were lots of kids and lots of families. If you're playing the Finnish champions, if you're playing, you're gonna have to give the tickets away.
We did that in the Europa League. We've played for our islands and whatever else, and we sold the tickets. We struggle midweek, regardless of whether it's Champions League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, or a rearranged fixture, just because it's midweek and everybody has commitments, lifestyles, and things like that. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's who you're playing. Most fans, if they could, would go every game, regardless of who they're playing. But unfortunately, I say unfortunately, lucky we all have lives in that sense, but lives take over. Some people have kids to get to school or family businesses to run, etc. So midweek games are always a struggle. It doesn't matter who we're playing or when we're